Swati, can you introduce Pankaj?
Yes, sir. So let me introduce the next speaker of the day, Mr. Pankaj Srivastava. Mr. Pankaj Srivastava started his career in February in 1983 as medical rep in Hosh Pharmaceuticals. He joined MSD as regional business manager and after forming the Januvia team, got promoted as marketing manager. He also worked in two Indian companies, Mylan Biotech and Shield Healthcare, as general manager, training and business development. He has created many soft skill courses for pharma professionals and also for the doctors. We are eager to hear you, Pankaj sir. Over to you on Lantus.
So thank you, Dr. Swati. And I really appreciate the patience of all the participants. I really value that. Now, I feel also very nostalgic, not because I met Mr. Chitta Mitra or Mr. Tarun Gupta, but I feel nostalgic because I think for the first time, I'm speaking alongside Dr. Sandeep Bhattacharya, whom I used to listen with the rapt attention whenever I got the opportunity while working with Aventis. And subsequently, when he moved to MSD, I had also moved to MSD. So from that point of view, I feel very nostalgic, and thanks a lot to Vivek sir, Dr. Swati and Dr. Satish for this opportunity which is given to me. Coming back to Lantus strategy implementation, let me first of all share with you some background. See, Aventis as a company was known as an oral hypoglycemic agent company because we were having some brands which were the brand leaders. We had one tolbutamide with the brand name Restinon. We had Downhill, which served our diabetic patients for years together. And somewhere in 98, we had also introduced glimepiride with the brand name Amaryl. And Amaryl also within a span of 4 or 5 years had attained the #1 position. So the image of the organization was that of an oral hypoglycemic agent company. Now, in between, it was somewhere around, I think, 95 or 96, we had also introduced one human insulin with the brand name Insuman. And unfortunately, I must say, we were not able to create that sort of ripple effect which was needed. And I mean, the same thing I can also talk about Novo Nordisk, because Novo Nordisk also had an image of an insulin company. And when they had introduced ripaglinide, they also couldn't do justice. So maybe this happens that when you are so much, engrossed with a particular type of products, maybe you're not able to do justice with another set of products. So this was the scenario. So when we decided to launch Lantus, the whole objective was to create a paradigm shift in the manner diabetes was being treated and with no regimentation and lifestyle. Now, this regimentation and lifestyle was because till then, whatever insulins they were available, they used to peak. I mean, once you have injected those insulins, the action used to start, it used to peak, and then the action used to come down. And accordingly, the blood sugar movement also used to take place. So when the insulin levels, they were going up, the blood sugars used to come down and vice versa, right? So if suppose the insulin levels are going up and the person is not having sufficient glucose load, the chances of hypoglycemia used to be there. The chances of hunger centers used to get activated, because we all know that when the blood sugars they drop, the hunger center gets activated, and therefore person used to gobble food. So all these problems were there with the existing insulins. So when we decided that we are going to launch Lantus, there was a lot of spade work which was done. So the first thing was what sort of team we should create. So we decided that we need to have those sort of people who were good in science, who were good in articulation, and who also had the sort of confidence that they were in a position to sometimes challenge the doctor's belief system, right? So we actually handpicked, all such type of people into Lantus team. And let me tell you, it was not so easy because the various BU heads, they were very reluctant to release their good people. But somehow with a lot of persuasion, we were able to put up a good team. After that, for close to 15 days, we had a rigorous training, right from 9 o'clock till 7 o'clock in the 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. in the evening. And in this training, I must emphasize, for 15 days for one product, all aspects of disease management that was discussed. It was not only diabetes per se, or the competition per se, but we even discussed what happens when a diabetic person suffers from, say, cerebrovascular problems, or what happens, for instance, in TIAs, what happens in prints, what happens, in hemorrhagic strokes, or when it comes to peripheral diseases, what happens at Burgess diseases, intermittent claudication, diabetic leg ulcers, venous leg ulcers. When it came to cardiovascular problems, what happens in cor pulmonale, left ventricular hypertrophy, congestive cardiac failure, or what happens in CKD. So we had not left any part, untouched, whichever people they were not aware. Along with that, during this training period, since we also wanted to give them this conviction that Lantus injections are virtually painless injection, both morning as well as evening, we all used to inject through the insulin syringes, normal saline. So imagine for 15 days, 30 pricks we ourselves we had taken, so that that conviction comes. After that, some of us, of course, had gone for a sales offensivity training. Don't get carried away with the word offensive, because the idea was not to infuriate the doctors, but the idea was that we should also be able to form certain probing questions in order to get the information from the doctors, or in order to persuade the doctors to a particular concept, or sometimes in order to even challenge the doctor's belief system. Because mind you, when you want to dislodge, or when you want to have a paradigm shift, you have to dislodge the existing belief system of the doctor, and that you cannot do by merely begging or by simply requesting. So sometimes you need to pose certain questions, probing questions. So with that intention, this sales offensivity training we had undergone, and then we had rolled out to all the Lantus participants. After that, we also wanted to ensure that all the persons who were involved with Lantus, they should know all the nuances of diabetes management. So we had decided that every person will sit inside the doctor's chamber, of course, with the permission of the doctor, for one full day, and he will be observing the way doctor treats diabetes, what sort of questions doctors are asking, what sort of questions the patients are asking, and if they are prescribing insulins, what dosage they are prescribing, whether they're prescribing more dosage in the morning or more dosage in the evening, and if less dosages were being prescribed in the evening, why, etc., etc. So one full day, all the people involved, they had spent one full day with the endocrinologist, diabetologist. After that, doctors list also was not curled out just like that. Before that, a pre-marketing survey was done. We actually took the data bank of all the doctors, how many patients they were having on insulin, and from top to bottom, we had actually segregated the doctors, and based on that, we had taken out the doctors list, and the deployment of the people was also done accordingly. So this was the spade work which was done before the launch of Lantus. After that, there were some marketing challenges what we were having. The first challenge, friends, was that all insulins, as I've said, they used to peak, right? So that means they were having peak and trough type of action. And let me explain to you. So if you see, there were some regular insulins or rapid acting insulins where the actions used to last maybe for 4 hours. They used to peak within half an hour, recombinant DNA technique insulins. And there was this intermediate acting NPH insulin. It used to peak around 4.5 hours or 5 hours, right? Only Glargine was that Lantus was the only insulin which you never used to peak. It was a flat peakless insulin. And this was also the insulin which later on Novo Nordisk had introduced. So as I've explained to you in earlier slide, that when the insulins are peaking, the blood sugars are dropping. When insulin levels are dropping, the blood sugars are increasing. And this was giving certain amount of regimentation and lifestyle. Plus, this was also giving rise to a glycemic variability problem. That was one. Second challenge was that the Novo Nordisk, they were the dominant players in insulin market, right? And doctors' perception was that when it comes to diabetes, education, everything, it is the Novo Nordisk which will be facilitating that. And Novo Nordisk, I must appreciate, they had established this concept of tackling postprandial blood sugar in a postprandial blood sugar on a firm footing, right? And the reasons were two. First reason was a scientific reason. because we all know that when diabetes sets in, it's the postprandial blood sugar excursions which are there, right? And as the diabetes worsens, the fasting blood sugars contributions are more. And for the benefit of all those who do not know what is fasting and postprandial blood sugars are those blood sugars which increase once you eat food, and fasting blood sugars are those blood sugars which you measure in the morning after a fasting of say around 8 to 10 hours. So these were the two, so they had established this postprandial blood sugar excursions to be tackled first in a very, very nice manner. The second reason why Novo Nordisk was successful, they were competing with the oral hypoglycemic agents that time, and they wanted to have this early insulinization. Now, when you want to have early insulinization and you are trying to displace the oral hypoglycemic agents, obviously you have to tackle the postprandial only, because that is what the science also of the diabetes says. But the problem was, the behavior was that doctors, or for that matter, when patients, they were reluctant to take insulin pricks right in the beginning, especially in type 2 diabetic patients. Of course, in type 1, you have to give insulin. There's no other option. But for type 2 diabetic patients, doctors had the choice of oral hypoglycemic agents. So they were first giving, say, metformin, then they were giving sulfonylureas. That time, thiazolidine, diones were also there. I think a carbos has also come. So when the doctors had done all sorts of permutations and combinations, and when the patients were not under control, that was the time doctors used to put insulins. And by then, already the contribution of fasting blood sugars used to be very, very high. As I've shared, when the diabetes worsens, is the contribution of fasting blood sugar that increases. So we were able to surmount this marketing challenge in a three-pronged attack. So what we did, we started telling the doctors that, doctor, when you want to initiate the patient on insulin, you have to fix fasting first, right? And why you have to fix fasting first? And we quoted this Monier et al. Study, which even now also many companies who are marketing these anti-diabetic products, they quote, where Monier et al. Study clearly told that when diabetes sets in, that means when the HbA1c is around 7.3, it is the postprandial which is high, and the fasting levels are low. And as the diabetes worsens, the fasting blood sugar levels contribution is high. So you have to fix fasting first. Therefore, because by the time patients are coming to you, their fasting blood sugars are already very high, right? So that was the first thing. Second thing also, we firmly established that, look, once the fasting blood sugars are low, right, the postprandial excursions on that will also be low. Because, I mean, if you see, if the fasting blood sugars are low, the postprandial excursions will also be low. And if this is the fasting blood sugar, then the postprandial excursions will be very, very high. So with this, we completely altered the concept of fixing postprandial first to fixing fasting first. And let me also tell you, not that Novo Nordisk, they were not aware. Everybody was aware. The problem was why they were not able to fix fasting first, because the existing armamentarium, what they were having one NPH insulin. Now, NPH insulin used to peak around, say, after 4.5 hours to 5 hours. Now, imagine if a doctor has given, say, NPH insulin in the night around 8 o'clock. Around 12 or 12:30 or 1, this NPH insulin used to peak. And if there was no sufficient glucose load available, the person could have had hypoglycemia. And let me tell you, hypoglycemia is even worse than hyperglycemia, because hypoglycemia can trigger cardiac events, right? So this was the problem. Now, even if suppose the person is not having hypoglycemia, but the blood sugars drop because the NPH is peaking, person suddenly used to get up. He used to feel this hypoglycemic symptoms. He used to feel hungry and he used to gobble food, and therefore the weight gain was a problem. And with the gobbling of the food, again, the fasting blood sugars were very high. The third reason is that as the diabetes worsens, the hepatic glucose output, that starts, producing large amount of glucose from the reserved glycogen. That also is responsible for increase in fasting blood sugar. So therefore, we said, now you have got an option. You were not able to give aggressively NPH insulin, but with Lantus, you can go aggressively because Lantus does not peak. So you can give around 10 to 12 units of Lantus in the night. And for postprandial excursions, you can tackle that with the oral hypoglycemic agents. And that time, of course, we were having Amaryl. So we were promoting Amaryl. So I must say, Ripaglinide was also another good product. another concept what we established was the BOT therapy, right? Basal supported oral therapy. Now, BIT therapy was there. Doctors were aware about it. But bedtime insulin, daytime oral hypoglycemic agent, doctors were not able to, because the bedtime insulin, what they were having at their disposal was either NPH or lente insulin, which was NPH plus zinc insulin. Now, both of them they used to peak. So doctors were not able to give this bedtime insulin, daytime sulfonylurea. So we coined another term. We said BOT therapy, basal supported oral therapy. We said, doctor, give Lantus in the night, and for postprandial excursions, give oral hypoglycemic agents. And at least those patients who were on, say, two pricks of mixtures, there were many, that time, human mixtard was there, hum insulin was there, Insuman 2575 was there. So instead of giving, all those patients who were taking, say, 2 injections, instead of 2 injections, you can give 1 basal insulin in the night and oral hypoglycemic agent in the morning. And this was very well accepted by the patients, because anything which removes them from the pain, perceptible pain of that insulin injection was most acceptable. So this BOT therapy we firmly established. The third thing what we did very well was that we realized that many doctors that time, they were checking the fasting and postprandial, and we said that, look, this is not fair. I mean, you must check the HbA1c level, and we provided HbA1c kits also in many centers that time. And we said, not only you should check HbA1c, but you must also check what is the responder rate. That means what percentage of patients, once you put them on Lantus, are able to maintain their HbA1c less than 7. That was what ADA was recommending that time. So with this 3-pronged attack, we were quite successful in establishing Lantus on firm footing. So that's one. So let me now move on to what was the methodology employed. Well, the methodology employed was, first of all, we had created the advisory board, where I must say all the eminent doctors, endocrinologists, diabetologists of this country, they were a part of that. We also had regional advisory boards where, these doctors, those who were in various regions, they were also a part of that. Once we had convinced all these doctors with the, the data what we were having, we conducted, large scale meetings, large scale symposiums in major towns. I must say the global also that time supported us very well, because, some eminent scientists like Julio Rosenstock, Roger Mays from Mayo Clinic, Dr. Bergenstall, all those brand managers, those who have been dealing with the anti-diabetic products, they will be familiar with these names, right? All of them, they came to India, and they were also, they also conducted various symposiums in these places. Third thing, see friends, you would have recalled that, though I know it's quite late, but you would have recalled that Dr. Sandeep Bhattacharya in the morning talked about that if you are relying on persuasion, you may get few prescriptions, right? But the problem is this persuasion leads to what is in it for me, and then transactional business. So, that's not a long lasting, but if the conviction is there, if a doctor feels that, look, this product is going to help my patients, and if this belief system the doctor is having, this perception is having, then obviously the doctor is going to prescribe your product. So we used to discuss with doctors purely on the basis of what issues they are facing, what is the solution what they are having with the existing armamentarium, and how Lantus is going to benefit them. So there were many such issues what we were discussing, but I'll just give you one example. Like, for instance, glycemic variability, I have just now talked, so I have picked up this example only. Now, the glycemic variability, friends, what happens is it leads to microvascular complications. Now, why this is so? Because there are certain cells in our body like neurons, nephrons, retina, lens of the eye, and vascular endothelium. They do not require insulin for glucose entry to take place. So whenever there is a glycemic excursion, whenever the glucose load goes up, part of this glucose enters in these cells. And suppose if it's in neurons, then there is something known as polyol pathway, because what will happen then is this glucose in the presence of aldactose reductase enzyme will get converted into sorbitol. The osmotic pressure of the neuronal cell will increase. The mannitol depletion takes place, and therefore the nerve impulse conduction gets deranged. Now, I will stop here because my whole idea is not to give you a lot of technical information, But the message which I want to drive here is that if I am able to give them that, look, this is the problem you are facing. With the existing armamentarium, you cannot tackle, because all these insulins are peaking, and when they peak, the blood sugars come down, and when the insulin levels come down, the blood sugar goes up. So this problem will be there. It is only with Lantus, which is a virtually peakless insulin, you will be able to tackle this problem. Same was the case with not only glycemic regimentation and lifestyle and so on and so forth. Now here I want to take a pause and I want to talk one dichotomy, which I always say. See, when we were medical representatives, we used to have 30 products. We used to cover large territories, 4 districts. We were meeting MBBS doctors, very few physicians, mostly MBBS, BAMS, RMP. There was no online, these journals and subscriptions. No Google was there. Medical profession was completely dependent on the pharma industry for the scientific dissemination of knowledge. Today, the dichotomy is, the paradox is that we are dealing with just 1 or 2 products, and we are meeting super specialists, and they have got access to all the online publications. So knowledge doctors don't require. Now, in this scenario, if the knowledge level of our people, it has deteriorated, and very unfortunate, but that is what is the problem. And I don't blame at all my juniors, my youngsters, because I think they are much more smarter, they are much more knowledgeable, and smarter than what I was at that age. The problem is that most of the pharmaceutical companies, they do not pay adequate amount of attention on learning and development. I mean, very sad state of affairs, but the fact is, I'm telling some, I'm very, frank in saying this, that whenever the companies, they want to cut cost, the first thing what gets hit is the learning and development. Now, if you are going to do that, what sort of value add you are going to have in the doctor's call? And if the value add is not there, as Dr. Shripad was telling, if the people are not able to have any value, then why a doctor should allow the visit of a medical representative? So this is the problem whatever people are facing, and therefore this is my earnest request to all the brand managers that please pay adequate amount of attention when it comes to learning and development. And you have got a nice forum in the form of PharmaState Academy. They can also help you on this. We were also having patient counselors, and these patient counselors, they used to go and talk to the patients. They used to demonstrate how to give the injections. And I must also tell you that when these patient counselors, they were going, and many a times they were going along with our representatives, we had even collected the feedback from the patients. And I want to give you one example. There was a barber in Delhi. Now, this was a very famous story. The barber was having a diabetic leg ulcer, which was a non-healing type for last 1 year. And this person told us in the video that I was not able to stand, and thus I was not able to do my function, my work, and my son was doing it. Now, when Lantus came, and when the doctor, one doctor in Delhi, he put him on Lantus, and his, that diabetic leg ulcer healed. He said, now today I'm able to earn some 600-700 rupees. And I don't mind spending 40-50 rupees per day. And mind you, Lantus during that time was costing 2,500 rupees for a 10 ml vial, whereas other insulin mixtures were costing around 168 for 3 ml, right? So imagine the price differential. And that is what I would like to highlight. When the medical profession, as well as your customers, your doctor, your patients, they realize that, look, the drug is working and it is doing a world of good for me, they don't mind spending money, and that the price barrier then does not exist. So this was the methodology which was employed when we launched Lantus. Now, if you want to successfully launch any product, what was the mood of the team? Well, I must appreciate that the mood of the team was brilliant, highly motivated and charged team we were having. I mean, 2 persons I can see in the screen also. Our Deepak Dada, I mean, he is there today. He was one of the most senior person. And of course, Amlesh was also assisting me. So, I mean, there were many such persons. They were highly charged, motivated, and they made our job very easy. Imagine for 6 months, the product was not there. Our people, they were going and meeting doctors and they were telling that, look, there is an unmet need and we are coming out with a product very shortly, which will fulfill this gap, what you have got. And without product, when you are meeting with the doctors, I mean, you need to have guts, you need to have science, you need to have where vitals to engage the doctor into a meaningful conversation. So that's what they were doing. I think I'll be failing in my duty if I don't mention the name of 4 persons, right? First, of course, Dr. Sandeep Bhattacharya, he was the commercial director. And I mean, initially, when we launched Lantus, there were some teething problems. I mean, he supported all of us so well. Then, of course, there was Mr. Sushil Umesh. He was my Lantus project head that time. Later on, he became the managing director of Sanofi, in African countries, and then later on in Abbott as less than for this one more company. There was third person, Mr. Shailesh Rao. He was the product manager that time. And our Dr. Devdutt Patnaik, our great mythologist, he also used to give his critical inputs. I must also say that my team was working with a lot of vengeance, right? I mean, first of all, our competitors were very strong, right? Because Novo Nordisk, that was a company which was known for their marketing prowess, which was known for disseminating knowledge to the doctors. And fact of the matter is, we could not do justice to our instrument. So when we had state-of-the-art product in Lantus, we were also very firm that we are going to create that niche and we are going to create that, that sort of a market which cannot be beaten. So I mean, we were working with a lot of vengeance then. Of course, we got excellent support from the KOLs. And when later on, after some time, when Novo introduced their Livermore, which was Detimer, I must say they couldn't do well. They couldn't displace, and they couldn't create that sort of ripple effect which was needed. And today, as per the IMS, the Lantus sales is more than 500 crores and is the number 2 brand in the Indian pharmaceutical industry. With this, I'd like to close by simply sharing this quote that successful organizations understand the importance of implementation, not just a strategy, and moreover recognize the crucial role of their people in this process. A quote by Jeffrey Peffer. Thank you very much for your patient listening. I really appreciate. It's late, friends, but thank you very much.